I really see AI as that force that works alongside of your agent to give them the superpowers.
Use AI as a way to supercharge your support and your customer service. It really does just plug right in.
I do think like stepping into AI for the first time, there's a lot of noise.
If you're waiting for the perfect thing, then you're just going to miss it and you're going to be behind. So just get something in place.
If we can automate that in some way by leveraging technology to drive conversion, then everybody wins.
All right. We are excited to get going here, and thank you for joining the AICX Summit 2025. Just a couple housekeeping items. Thank you again for joining. We are so thankful to all the partners who jumped in. We've got Signals, Order Protection, Hark, Parcel Lab, and YoFi. If you didn't see in our quick video, boy, did we have so many volunteers jump out to see if they could help push the movement forward. 40 plus speaker from companies, from brands all over the world, all sharing their best practices on how you can do better in AI and CX. We did cross over 2,000 registrants. We are live on multiple channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, also the registration link many of you are using currently. We had a big voting award ceremony to help recognize some of the great people in the space. That was our top technology for CX, as well as those leaders making a difference in CX. And so thank you for those almost 10,000 people who jumped in to vote. You can see people attending represent many of retail brands across the United States and the global landscape, from Walmart to Spanx to Ollie. So thankful that everyone jumped in. I think it's going to be an amazing event today. Just to make sure you understand a little bit about the agenda before we jump in, wanted to welcome you. Next, I've got Dave Elkington, CEO of Signals, on why this event and what's going on in AI. Special guest, Leah, coming from Bain, and some very interesting research there. We'll have a CEO panel from some of the partners of this event talking about what is AI really doing in the world of brands. And then we kind of bring it home with John LeBaron from Pattern and some of the success they've had. I will wrap this all up with our award show to recognize some of those amazing people who are pushing the boundaries in AI. And then last but not least, we've now broken it up into about 4 different tracks, some of these on-demand sessions in a Netflix-style format where you can jump in at your leisure and hear some of these expert brand leaders about what they're doing to be successful in this changing environment. And so with that, let me take this off and then welcome Dave Elkington to the screen. Dave, thanks for joining, and how are you?
Good. Excited to be here. A little blown away with the amount of engagement and attendance and voting. So surprised, like a little. I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm a little surprised at how big this got and how fast it got big. Right?
Yeah, such a grassroots effort. I mean, this was kind of more of the an idea from your mind. Why did it come about? What was the thought?
Yeah. So look, I think Signals is not an event company, but every quarter we host a free virtual event. And it's usually somewhere in the go-to-market funnel. It's someplace, but we'd never done one in the CX space, but it's all around AI and how AI is affecting the go-to-market. And then just kind of off the tail of Shop Talk, we had a lot of our partners, a lot of our customers reach out and say, look, Shop Talk is expensive. I think it was
like a $1,400 ticket.
No, what, like, well, that's a lot of money. And not only that, it's like how many days out of your calendar, you got to fly across the country potentially. And so they said, look, would you be willing and interested in hosting an AICX event? And we're like, yeah, of course. So this is really a grassroots thing. It wasn't really something we had on our radar, but as you can see, like the impact and the effect and the outreach has been pretty phenomenal. Yeah, so it's excited to have this.
Yeah, so cool to see the community kind of rally. And again, free of no speakers was paid, no attendees paid. this is all about trying to bring people together to cut through the noise that's going on in the space. So I wanted to hit that next. It is, and we're going to hear from some awesome people coming up here in a minute, but if you could set the stage, CX is changing, a lot of noise out there.
Right.
How are you seeing kind of the landscape change and people start to adapt and try to be successful in this new world with AI?
Yeah, I mean that I've got some shocking stats, and we'll share an infographic after the event if anybody wants. But some of these stats I think will shock you. It shocked me. So these are coming out of Black Friday. In fact, that was one of the things as people in the industry asked if we would host this. They wanted it after Black Friday. I'm like, guys, you haven't slept in probably 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Like, why would you want it? But like, they're like, oh, they don't. This industry, from what I can tell, does not sleep. So, I wanted to kind of start with what's that? Go ahead.
I said, yeah, let's go, man.
No.
Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Go.
Black Friday and the impact of AI on Black Friday, I think will surprise people. So the big number, according to Reuters, was it was a record Black Friday. It was 11.8 billion, which is almost 10% year over year. So this is the biggest retail Black Friday in the history of the planet, right? Like those are big numbers. But even bigger was a 44.2 billion of online sales, which is nearly an 8% growth for Cyber Monday. So these are big, crazy big numbers. And I think there's been debates, was it good? Undoubtedly it was good, but that's not the interesting stuff to me. Here are some of the interesting things. AI-driven traffic to retail websites, meaning your people attending here, your websites, was 800% year over year, meaning someone either searched it in an LLM or somehow engaged in an AI search, 800% growth, which and there's lots of kind of related stats, but the more interesting one is people who engaged through an AI chat service were almost 40% more likely to buy than non-AI engagement. And even more interestingly, AI agent influence. So if you think about, there's two ways people were engaging in AI to buy in the last 2 or 3 weeks. One is just through search. So GPT search or Gemini or Grok or whatever. And as everybody knows, they're embedding a lot of these. It's kind of like, it's the new SEO. So it's search optimized, AI search optimized recommendations and traffic. The other path is through AI agents or agent influenced. So 20% of all orders globally were affected by AI influenced agents.
Really?
So
wow, we're moving. It's moving.
20%. And that's almost 70 billion in worldwide sales. And just in the US alone, it was 17% of orders, representing about 13.5 billion. So look, 1 in 5 orders during Cyber Week had an AI system, whether it's an agent or a search or some kind of AI involvement somewhere in that purchase path.
Well, I think Dave, that's an awesome kind of set. This, like, AI is starting to creep in, and obviously we're going to get into that with Leah and John and some of the others today. What's kind of your take on that? I mean, that must be changing the environment, that the way brands or companies are then needing to build their shops, service their customers, et cetera. How do you see the organization changing because of that?
And that's the principle of today. The principle of the event today is to help people know how to pivot into the future, because it's not the same. It's a different kind of future. And so, look, in essence, there's a new kind of company being built. And it's not the old way of building a business. The old way we built a business was, you may have a great brand, you take it to market, you introduce it, you start to scale, you hire more people. That's not how people are building anymore. There's this different people are calling it different things. My favorite is the autonomous enterprise. Mark Benioff at Salesforce calls it the agentic organization. Satya Nadella at Salesforce is calling it the frontier firm, but they all mean the same thing. Rather than scaling with humans, you're scaling with cloud employees or complex AI agents. And they do like all the way from tasks where they do just small components of what we're doing to complete jobs. So an example, we have a client who is replaced. I mean, they're a Fortune 500 retail brand, but they've replaced 400 offshore support people with completely autonomous AI cloud employees or AI agents. And it's driving costs down nearly 90%. So you're going to, the savings are pretty meaningful. So the autonomous enterprise is no longer the brute force scale with lots of people. It's this hybrid organization where you have people and you have co-pilots and you have autonomous, teammates, and it's working together. And today we're going to hear a lot of that. I think you're going to hear a lot about how AI and Leah, I'm super excited to speak with Leah today. She's one of the world experts. So we're super privileged to have her. So she runs a lab at Bain. She's an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur. She built several companies, and then she built this at Bain and has some crazy research. But I think you're going to see from the CEO panel to all the way through these tracks how people are applying and building these autonomous enterprises, scaling their retail brands without scaling costs. So I think it's going to be an exciting day.
Fascinating. So as we kind of get ready to bring Leah on here, just curious, so what here, so leaders, what should they be doing now?
Yeah.
What would be a takeaway you'd kind of leave as people dive into these sessions and try to learn about AI and CX?
Yeah. And we saw in your intro, the intro video, there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of noise. And every day there's a new model announced. Every day there's a new AI agent announced. And so it's super confusing. I think what you want to get out of today is exposure. My recommendation to everybody and my advice is be super curious. Listen to what people are saying. If it kind of feels like it's going to be a fit for you, try experiment. So dream very big, explore, kind of look at the big picture and possibility of what can happen, but experiment small. One thing we see is most AI failures, and we hear them. There was a study in the summer where MIT said 90% of AI pilots failed. Later, Wharton said, no, that's not right. 90% of them succeed. So who knows, dude? I don't know. But here's what I would say. Of our clients, and we have, hundreds of clients using, these complex AI agents for all the way from, support to RMA, just whatever. They succeed when you test very small. So think when you hire a new person, you don't give them the whole thing. You're start here.
Yeah. Do this.
Yeah. Try this, get good. So learn, listen to what people are recommending, and then go investigate it and try it. Here's a random one. Comet is a AI enabled browser by Perplexity. It's $20 a month. Try it. And if, check it out, try it. And if it doesn't work, don't do it. If you can find some use, try it. So those are the kinds of tools, experiments, but try very small, and then blow. And you'll hear tons of it today.
I love it. Perfect. All right. Well, with that, we do want to kind of bring on Leah, if that's all right. It was so fun, Leah, thanks for jumping on. We met Leah, through a couple different connections, but as Dave said, such an interesting background and talk track. Dave and her are going to jump into this idea of the future consumer meets AI. So Dave, over to you.
All right. First, Leah, thank you honestly for doing this. Sometimes when people do these things, look, we're punching way above our weight class to have you on. So really honored to have, look, you're kind of one of the inventors of this category. You're doing research that's leading the industry. So again, thank you for doing this, but let's start, from your humble beginnings, right? You weren't always, a senior partner here at Bain. You've started companies. You actually found your way here from psychology. That's a non-judgment statement because I came from philosophy. So, but right, where are you from? How did you get into this?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I love talking about this. So any chance I have to have intellectual, interesting conversations, I'm all for it. So so I did. I studied psychology as an undergrad. I always loved the way people think. I actually, fun fact, wanted to be a psychology professor, and I took a left turn and went into business instead. But always fascinated, even when I was in business school, about why are people making the decisions that they make, whether that's why they buy something or why they decide, to move to a different city, for example. So when I took that left turn into business and went to business school, I joined Bain, a strategy consulting firm. And along the way, I was an entrepreneur. I started businesses on the side. My first business was a jewelry business. I started a professional development business. Amazing.
What kind of jewelry was it? Just curious.
Very chunky, kind of out there jewelry. I still love making it, but I don't sell it anymore. But it was like early days of payments. So PayPal, I had to figure out how do you integrate PayPal into a website back in the day in 2004. And so that was, all a challenge.
Super cool.
But as I made my way into Bain and joined as a strategy consultant, working with consumer facing brands, because that was always my passion. And there was that little element of consumer behavior in it. What happened during the pandemic was actually our consumer products clients, our retail clients, our phone is ringing off the hook. And they were saying, tell us what is going to happen, because toilet paper is flying off the shelf and tuna fish is flying off the shelf. But like, what's going to happen with everything else? Our restaurant clients were calling and saying, hey, when can people feel safe about going back to restaurants? When will people go to the grocery store? And we realized that at Bain, we actually didn't have an answer. And like, we couldn't predict the future anyway. Nobody could, but we didn't have
you're pretty good at it. I'm gonna say
No.
you're pretty good at it. So don't. We'll get into that.
Okay. Yes, we don't have a crystal ball, but we pick up signals. We weren't doing that because we did that work for clients. That data was proprietary. We didn't have a point of view from Bain to say, hey, consumers are feeling incredibly stressed. They tell us that if you put these measures in place, they would feel much more comfortable. And so this is where the wheels in my head were going, oh my God, this is consumer behavior. This is psychology in business. And let's start doing research. And so I started with a team doing consumer research on behalf of Bain, which created a lot of demand. And then a year or two later, we became an official group. And now we have a team, a global team, and we conduct qualitative and quantitative research to help our clients understand what is going on with consumers, but actually have a cohesive point of view. So studying everything, which we'll talk about today, from how consumers are using AI to how they think about sustainability to their general mood. And I love talking about the future. So that's just one of my favorite themes.
And the interesting thing is because I didn't understand this entirely until we spoke, but so you helped create this global consumer lab, and it doesn't actually focus client specific necessarily. This spans everybody, like all of your clients, and basically, so it is a true independent research lab, basically. Is that right?
Absolutely. So this is relevant to any consumer facing business or even a B2B to C business. Anything that has to do with people, we look at. And the methodology, or I would say the approach that I'm really passionate about that we use is looking at people as humans, not as consumers, like we're called the consumer lab, but not as shoppers, not as walking wallets, not as somebody who pushes their cart, down the proverbial aisle. It is a whole human, because all of the things that we do in our life impact all of the other things. And so I think sometimes we get caught in our sector or our category or our channel even, and we forget that actually
we get super narrow. Yeah, we get very narrow-sighted. Yeah.
And we're people, and you can just think of yourself as a consumer. Like, you have your role in your family, you have your role at work, you have your role with your friends, you have how you shop is probably very different from how you eat. And so we just need to keep all of these elements in mind. And so I always say we take a 360-degree view of the human, because we can't just look at their wallet. You
can't, and that's the problem. I think oftentimes we get so analytical that we're looking at just a very specific characteristic or feature of us, right? And it's like, no, so that kind of brings us into, you've got this concept around the 8 future consumer economies. And this is kind of a framework in the way you kind of see the world and you see markets. Help us understand a little bit. To me, it was fascinating.
So a few years ago, so we have a lot of data that we've been collecting, and it's very today focused. And as I said, I love talking about the future, and our clients all want to know, how can you help us with our 5-year, 10-year, longer term plan? Yeah. And so we started identifying what you would call signals. So like, how can we really look at this data and like start looking at little trends? But what we realized is a lot of people talk about consumer trends, and this would be like, I am into my keto diet, or a fad, right? We wanted to make, what are longer term themes? And so we looked at macro forces. And this is what I think is really missing from a lot of consumer research. So it's like big, huge demographic shifts that are really undeniable. So like, there's some things, like I say, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what the color of the season is going to be next year, but I can tell you that the population is aging. I can tell you that fertility rates are dropping in most parts of the world. I can tell you that family structures are changing. And so these are things that I think oftentimes we miss when we're thinking too narrow when it comes to consumer trends. And so what our team did is we took all these trends or fads, or consumer expectations, all these macro forces, and we mushed them all together, and we looked at a ton of research, and we talked to economists, and we talked to industry experts, and we talked to academics, and we did a ton of one-to-one consumer research, and 8 big themes came out. And so the reason that we call them economies is because they're actually areas of opportunity. So if you're a consumer-facing business, any of these are areas where you can create a new business model, where you can meet new meet needs that exist in a new way. And so that's why I really like the word economy.
Economy versus a trend or something like that.
Like it will be there.
Because a trend, a trend feels very much
temporary.
smaller. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Okay, so
so one thing I will say about the economies is that I think, just to point, there's 8 of them. I won't go through all of them now because I know we have a lot to talk about. But some of them, like I said, have to do with these demographic shifts. And I think that if we take 2 of them, so let's take the aging population, for example, there's 2 billion people that are going to be over the age of 60 by 2050. It's huge. We love talking about Gen Z. But actually, if you look at where the people are and the money are, like it's—
I was going to say, and they have money. Actually, they're aging. They kind of have a lot of time, and they have money. And
I think the real difference is they're aging differently than they did in the past. So we used to think about 3 stages of life, like childhood, adulthood, and old age. That old age is now split between those who are healthy and they're living and they're spending and they're traveling and they're consuming, and maybe they're still working like they did when they were younger.
Fascinating.
And then you have this older population. So if you think about consumption or brands, you're like, okay, who are our consumers in the future? Yes, of course, Gen Z, but we now have a number of consumers who are living longer, they're living healthier, and they have money to spend, and they're digitally fluent. These are not, like, if you think about all of our parents, they're on Facebook, they're on their phones all the time. They know how to use this. So
maybe too much. Let's just be honest. Maybe a little too much.
Much too much. Yes. So that's one that I think is really, really important. And it's thinking like, actually, you have a longer customer lifetime value potentially because these people are living longer. Second one that I really like to mention is like what we call the redefined family economy, but it's effectively that like the standard way that a lot of our world was designed, at least in the Western world over the last several centuries, was around the nuclear family. That is not the way that families are these days or will be in the future. And so single person households, fastest growing household globally, everywhere we look. And we're just going to see a different formation and more fluidity when it comes to family. So why does that matter as a brand? That matters because there's different needs. People are engaging with products, with services, with content, with spaces in a different way than they did before. And so these are some of, I would say, like the undeniable forces that we see that can't be ignored, even though I think a lot of times when you talk about trends, they are ignored.
So what's interesting, because you started this saying that there's opportunities in these economies, right? And these are somewhat like, as you describe both of these 2 economies, they're kind of neglected, right? Or at least they're not like overtly recognized. Again, we focus so much on Gen Z or millennial, and these are not the trendy, cool, demographics, I guess. Yes.
Anecdotally, we work with a beverage company that effectively decided that after consumers were of a certain age, they didn't market to them anymore. It was just kind of like they were gone. And it's not that unusual. And so when we think, not only the spend, but like just the appetite for consumption, for products, for everything that there is. So yes, it's an opportunity. The other 2 that I will mention that I think will segue nicely into AI that almost are working in opposition. One is called the autonomous agent economy. And this is really, it's not just about AI. All the economies are based in need. So this is based in the human need of time, and like time being the ultimate luxury. 40% of Americans say they have no free time, 0 free time. And it's the same when we ask people in Europe. And so they're looking for ways to free up time. And AI and automation is one way for people to do that. Now, the flip side to that is that what that means is we spend a lot more time by ourselves with technology. Perhaps a lot of those social interactions that we used to have, even at the grocery store or at the restaurant where we're now using the QR code instead of the human interaction, those have been removed. And so, we have a risk, obviously, of being more lonely, which we hear about a lot in the media, and losing community. And so I think that this forum actually is an amazing example. We're going to talk about AI and all the great things it can do, but you've also created this community. People,
right? Yeah, exactly.
Which is critical. And so I think the big takeaway from the research that we do about the future is it's not that human needs are changing. They're the same. We have the need for safety. We have the need for security, community, health. It's just how we expect those needs to be met in the future is changing. And the opportunities for businesses to meet those needs in a way that delights us more so than it has in the past.
That totally makes sense. And it's like, again, you share it and it's intuitive and obvious, but we're kind of not thinking it. So I think it's super valuable. Okay. So you referenced, an AI study.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so tell us a little bit about the study and maybe 2 or 3 data points from the study that kind of e-com leaders need to internalize, need to think about and understand.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about the study because it's hot off the press.
You gave us a sneak peek, so this is pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
So it's very cool. So we're hearing all of this first. I think like if we start at the very top, and the headline is that AI and we ask consumers, so people, how they're using it in their personal and work lives. So this is not a study of executives and how they use AI. It's like your shoppers, your consumers, how are they using it? We did a very similar study 6 months ago, so we can compare and we can see the differences. So I think the big thing is that there's a huge step change. So 70% of Americans have used or are currently using AI, which is huge. So 7 in 10.
First off, that's crazy. Like
that's crazy.
We could end your session and everyone's like, holy cow. Like, how do we sell to people who basically all use AI in some way?
Absolutely. So that's huge. The other thing is that it's gone from, I would say, either a novelty or a curiosity to a core daily utility. 45% of people who use AI use it every single day, either once a day or several times a day. That's up 25% from the 6 months ago that we did the study.
6 months.
So it's interesting because when you think about why is that? Okay, well, the way that you start using AI is like learning something new, or you want a measurement conversion, or you want something really basic. And so that starts becoming habit. You start trusting those answers because those are the easy answers to trust because they're very factual. And it starts becoming, it becomes a habit. And then you start using it for other things, such as shopping, which is what I find super fascinating. So I'd say like penetration up, frequency up. Those are like the big things. And then we can talk, more detailed about shopping.
Yeah. So let's drill in like some of your shopping metrics, like the whole discovery funnel is like changing right now, like in real time. Like, what did you guys find in the data? What should like, retailers be thinking about? Yeah.
So almost 60% of people who use AI use it for shopping in some way. That means that they're either using it to find a new product, to compare products, to compare prices. So that's huge. What we also, when you talk about the funnel, I like to think about when Alexa came out. So everyone was really stressed out about voice, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, fine, it didn't disrupt everything, whatever.
We're still going to talk to people. We're still human.
Yes. Yes. Totally. This is different. And this is what I think is so fascinating because it actually has disrupted the top of the funnel. So search is disrupted in fundamentally 2 different ways. First of all, 0-click search. So people finding that summary on the Google page or whatever search engine they're using. That's up 15% since 15.
Okay.
But 65% of all searches are 0-click searches. That's our estimate.
Oh, holy cow. Okay. So what's the implication of that? What should people be like? What does that mean?
So if your consumer is not going to your website, that means that your paid media, your traditional media is not being used, at least for the top of the funnel in discovery. They're getting that information from either ChatGPT or from that Google summary. So you can think about this in a few ways. Both from I would say a brand, let's talk about it from a brand perspective and a marketing perspective.
Okay.
From a brand perspective, you still need to have the fundamentals there. You need to have an amazing product with a very strong brand, but people need to be talking about you. So instead of paying for clicks, you need to be paying for conversation. You need to make sure that you are on TikTok, you are on Reddit, you are on the recipe blogs, you are everywhere because that is how the AI is going to find you. Now, the other thing is as a brand, let's say you're selling through a retailer, you need to have all of the basics of SEO are they're table stakes now. So you need structured product data. You need accurate feeds. You need clear product attributes. You need everything perfect. That is like a non-negotiable. But instead of buying those clicks, you're now trying to buy your way into a conversation if you can.
Right. So keep going because you've just there's so much depth to what you just said. Okay, but you talk about that structured data because you're going down this path.
Yes. So on your website, it needs to be a clear site. That all data needs to be organized there. There are companies that are thinking about making separate websites for agents and consumers.
What do you think about that? No problem.
It's more work, but I think you need to get discovered. I think what you need to really be thinking about is how can you be talked about? And so
less about So, okay. So
Yeah,
less
go ahead.
about like restructuring a second website, more about like, how do I get engaged in meaningful conversations, real conversations
Yes.
in social media and in Reddit and in LinkedIn or in TikTok or like
Absolutely.
whatever it is. Okay.
And what I find really interesting about this, and I was speaking to I'm not a marketing, I'm a good consumer expert, not a marketing expert, but I was speaking to marketing experts, and I said, does this make marketing more human than less human? Like, because we've been doing, everything's been automated. And she's like, I think it's really both, but you ultimately need those people to be talking about you. And so in a way, you can do all your programmatic, like personalized, you can do, but you need to have people talking about you. And so I think from a marketing perspective, there's something about like rebalancing your spend. So you can still do targeted end of one personalized marketing where you have really good customer data, because actually people tell us, I think it's 60% of consumers say they don't mind having targeted ads as long as they're relevant to them. So that's okay. But you can't starve the top of the funnel. And so you need to make sure that, and to get to the top of the funnel now, you need to be in conversations. So that's a different way of thinking about where you're spending your money. I think the second thing is you're optimizing for discovery. And that's all the things that I talked about in terms of making sure that your product attributes are there, that everything is super clear for both a consumer and an agent to find you. And then lastly, measurement has to change. So we've been paying for clicks. We need to be paying for conversation.
Clicks are almost not, they're kind of relevant, but they're not the key thing anymore.
And people aren't clicking. And I think your statistic that you mentioned earlier is really telling and quite interesting, that was it 40% or 38%? I can't remember what it was, but of people did the purchase, like were hired doing the purchase because they'd already started in the chat, which does not surprise me at all, because that's where you do your research. So you've almost made your decision already by the time that you go onto the retailer's website or the brand website to make that purchase. So huge marketing shift that's needed. And then in terms of just having an amazing product, you just have to make sure that you have it, because
otherwise they're not going to talk about you. Like at some point,
they're not going to talk about you. And I get asked,
or if they do, it could be bad.
Yes. And I get asked a lot, oh, but couldn't you game the system like you did on Instagram years ago, where you bought followers and you had bots? And I'm like, well, initially, yes, of course. Yes. Then somebody's going to write a bad review. And then, so actually, I think at the end of the day, like people and conversation really, really matter.
So shocker, we have to make good products.
We have to make good products.
All right, I'm out. Yeah. No, it's crazy. But it's harder to game the system, is what you're saying, because it has to be real. It has to be authentic. And just one other interesting anecdote. One of our clients was having a hard, like getting a lot of traffic, but no one was buying. And we looked, the problem was their product descriptions were dated and inaccurate. So it was pulling it was basically the wrong demographics. And so on your structured data point, you really have to think about how would an LLM or an AI interpret your website?
Yes. And I think the other really interesting difference is previously you optimized for keywords, right? So you bought keywords on Google and it was very specific. Now we almost have to get in a different mindset of what is the problem that my consumers or shopper is trying to solve, and how can I solve that problem for them or be a solution, versus be the little black dress that they shopped for, right? So it's like party wear, or like, I want to go to a party, what should I wear to my winter cocktail event?
Yes.
Well, that could be shoes, that could be a purse, that could be a dress, that could be a different dress than they had in mind. And so thinking about, you're actually like, we talk to retailers and they're using their search bar on the website effectively as like the new marketing tool, because what you're understanding is, okay, and instead of showing up little black dress, I'm showing you now, if I have great data and I've organized based on natural language, I can give you an entire different selection and a broader selection of products than I ever could before, which is huge potential upside if you do it right.
I mean, look, if people don't hear anything else, that one tidbit, like, so don't think about, a keyword, think about what are people trying to solve? And then you can introduce an entire, cadre of solutions to that problem.
Absolutely.
Which opens your market up actually pretty significantly.
It does. It really does. And I think it goes back to what we had talked about also, like consumers being whole people. Like we're thinking about occasions in our lives that we are trying to solve for, and how can a brand or retailer help us with that more holistically? It also allows potentially for more upselling. So yeah, there's a lot of potential there.
Okay. So what, again, in this study, give us some of the other interesting stats that you found. Cause I'm sure, look, whenever you do a study, there's stuff you're just like, holy cow, this is so good. Like, share some of the so good stuff.
So I really, we asked a lot about trust. I think first what we're seeing is actually people are using it for many more personal use cases than they were 6 months ago. And probably not surprising. I don't know how many of you have like asked it for relationship advice or work advice, or like things that are more relational and more personal. It also indicates, I think, that we're just trusting it more. The other thing is that trust is much higher than usage. And this is always what we see in terms of technology adoption, because usually trust leads adoption. But given that trust is actually so high, I can't predict it. But yes, I would assume that it indicates that there will be even more adoption across all the different use cases. And then millennials are actually the ones who trust it and use it the most. So we, as expected, younger people use it more than older people. But usually we see a really linear curve with like Gen Z being the highest, millennials. One could argue that millennials are using it more at work. They have more disposable income, so they're using it more for shopping. But either way, they trust it more and they're using it more. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well.
That is super interesting. Now, you also had you kind of looked at AI inside the business, like not just at the edge, but inside the business. So like if someone were to become a CX leader at a company of a mid-sized brand, like what's like the first internal AI initiative they should be thinking about, and why? Like where's the value out of like these specific projects?
Yeah, so I think based on what I just said, one would maybe think, I would say like double down on discovery, product discovery. I think instead what I would say is look at your internal operations and see where you can automate and speed up, offload everything else. Because what that is going to do is give you the time to do all of the rest. There is so much that you can do in terms of, whether you call it back office, whether you call it like any of your daily email management, like sales, like whatever it is. What can you do to actually free up time? Because there is a lot more like the marketing needs to be shifting. We need to be thinking about that in different ways. So if you're trying to free up time, what can actually be done? I would say from a business process perspective. And that's probably where I would start, even though I think it's very exciting to go straight into the discovery.
I know, right? That's kind of the fun place. But basically what you're saying is buy time with more automation on back office stuff that frankly isn't the funnest or the sexiest stuff to do, but it actually enables you to be more strategic.
It enables you to be more strategic. It enables you to upskill your people and stretch them in different ways.
Okay.
And so instead of replacing a person necessarily with AI, you can replace portions of a job, or people do things faster, and then they're able to do the next step. So I think I would look at internal operations first.
Are there any specific jobs or use cases where you're like, we've seen people be very successful, like using AI to automate, to co-pilot, to enable this more effectively, or is?
I mean, it's really across at least within our company and like within a lot of our clients' companies, we've seen it across all businesses or all functions, like everything from supply chain. So you do better forecasting. There's a lot of ways to introduce AI in sales. So following up, lead generation, like there's a lot that people don't love doing that can be automated, but still includes a human at the end of the day when a human is needed. And so whether it's anything from, let's say, a customer service agent, you speak to, that's not actually a human. And maybe it's just because you need information. If you need to build a relationship with somebody, yes, that's a time when you need to have
a human involved. Yep.
And so it's thinking about like for every job, when do you really need a human? And that would be the more relational component of it. And when do you just need to be transferring information? And then maybe it can be done by AI or done by a bot.
So again, people listening today should kind of differentiate. That's a pretty insightful distinction. If there's a relationship value, don't keep the human involved. If it's really just back office stuff or things where, in fact, we've seen some examples where people will even prefer to be chatting with an AI agent or talking to an AI kind of cloud type employee just because it's transactional. And they're just like, I just need information. I'm kind of in a hurry. I just want to get information. So again, relationship versus more transactional type interactions. And it could just be back office stuff. So that as they think about projects, differentiate that way. So Black Friday in the next 12 to 18 months. So we just made it through another Cyber Week and Black Friday. Based on what you guys are seeing this season, like what are the signals people should be thinking about as they prepare for the next 12 to 18 months and the next Black Friday?
So I think that
like where do they put resources? Where should they be thinking strategically?
Yeah, so really shifting into that search and discovery. When I talked about first how search, I talked about search was being disrupted, and I mentioned zero-click search. The second way that search is fundamentally being disrupted is that chatbots, so the chat GPTs of the world, are just replacing search engines completely. So 15% of people today say they always go directly to the chatbot. This is in America. Another 30% say they go to either or. So that's 45% of people that are potentially just going to the chatbot. So if you think about next season, and
I mean, that's a crazy stat. Again, we're just rolling through that, but it's like in 24 months, the entire like purchasing and search and research behavior is almost entirely changed. Yeah.
Completely changed. And I just find it so funny because we used to say like, oh, let me Google that for you. And that's just like not what we do anymore.
No.
And so if you think about it that way, there's obviously the search and discoverability that we talked about.
Yeah.
I think it's also thinking about how can you as a retailer or as a brand, make sure that you own that last bit of the funnel. So whether that is the fulfillment and the purchase, and that could be through many different ways. It could be through offering special things that are only available through your website. Mm-hmm. So special bundles, special deals, but you want to keep that data. Like that is your gold as a retailer or as a D2C brand. And so yes, let them show up, do an amazing job in search and discovery, but see if you can make sure that you own that last part of the funnel or last part of the journey. You want that data on the last click for the sale. You want that data on fulfillment. You want to have that customer information to make sure that you stay in touch with them. And so I think that's really what you have to think about as a direct-to-consumer brand or retailer where data is really your gold. What are you going to do to make sure that you keep
that? And do you think do you think that's a risk that we face over the next 12 months? I mean, obviously it's a risk, but how big a looming risk is it that we start losing access to that like end of funnel data?
I think it can be, I mean, okay, so it's not agentic AI. 25% of people say that they would trust an agent to do the end-to-end shopping. That's not really happening yet, but the technological advancements are there. So technology is there. I would say the psychology and trust is not quite there yet. That does not mean in the next 12 months it won't be. And so I don't think that anyone should sit and twiddle their thumbs on this. I think we need to really think about what can we do to continue to drive traffic, at least at the end, do something special and make sure that we know who our customers are. Because you don't
create experiences where they want to finish it with you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So we only have a couple of minutes left, and I want, again, I warned you, I love like that hint into the future. So like pull out the crystal ball that you claim you don't have, but we know you do. Like what's a consumer shift? Like what's going to change that's going to put us on our heels and we're probably not thinking about it. We're not seeing it. Like over the next 12 to 18 months, like things are moving so fast, but you have such a bird's eye view, like you do see it. So help us think a little bit future for a minute.
So the thing that I have been saying for a while that I think is just worth noting is that if you look at a lot of consumer brands, they've grown through premiumization. And especially FMCG. If you look at that sector, volume was significantly down and they grew through price increases. And that's how the sector has been growing for the last few years since COVID. Okay. We often ignore the value segment, which is huge. The other thing that I think is quite interesting is that it's not just lower income people that are shopping value segment. It is upper income people, middle income people.
Totally,
shopping across. And so I do worry, or I wouldn't say worry, I would say like,
interesting.
If we're all focusing on that premium section, which I know is great for small new brands, and it's a great way to enter the market because you don't have scale yet, et cetera. Yeah. But I really think there's opportunity, and I think this is why we see private label really being quite advanced and sophisticated, and at least in FMCG. But there's a huge population and a huge opportunity at that value segment if you can get the economics to work. And so yeah,
okay,
I think
keep going. This is super interesting.
I think we've been, as just consumer brands in general, too focused on the premium segment. That's the Leah Johns perspective, but huge opportunity in maybe not mass, but go to value and see what there is and how you can delight consumers there.
That is first, like that's another one. Like that is that one of your economies, or is that just a Leah Johns insight into your brain?
No. At Bain, we look at polarization of wealth, polarization of value, like the carving out of the middle of many different sectors where you have super luxury and you have value. But what we're seeing is like many brands are competing for that same population of people. There is a saturation point eventually, right? And so I do think that there is opportunity. It's just getting the economics right, which
AI could help with that.
Which AI can help with. Absolutely. Like if you zero-base a business or start from scratch, this is where you could actually really, extract some value, I think.
It's amazing. So we're out of time. Like we could talk for man, we could talk forever here, but like so interesting. Where can people go? Number one, if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out? And two, when is the study available? And are you going to make some of it public? And if you do, please post it on LinkedIn and we'll share it and promote it. And
absolutely. So yes, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, no problem, and connect with me and send me a message, and I'm happy to connect.
Cool.
And then in terms of the research, we just published a chart. We're about to publish a brief in maybe a month or so, but I'm going to publish another chart, or we will publish another chart. I will post it on LinkedIn, so you're happy to share.
Do that, and we'll amplify and make sure all the attendees have access to it. So interesting.
Yeah. Thank you both very much.
Thank you for doing this. So interesting. Gabe, you're muted right now, by the way, which is kind of where I like Gabe to be. Shoot, you unmuted. Dang it.
I hear that. Anyways, okay. Well, Leah, thanks so much for joining. We'll let you jump. Dave, really appreciate it. Yeah. We're going to now jump to the next session here, if we can. This is a really interesting one. Let me see if I can get this on. We're going to do kind of a CEO panel. It'll be moderated by Alex. She's the co-founder and COO at Yofi, but there has been some changes going on there. Excited for them as they kind of trickle in here. So this group will be talking specifically about the great CX reset, what AI is forcing every brand to change. So looks like we got them all in here. So Alex, I'm going to turn it over to you. And again, for everybody, thanks so much for taking the time and joining. Alex, over to you.
Hey, Gabe. Thank you so much. I think the last topic was super interesting with Leah and Dave talking so much about trust, right? And how much the consumer has to trust. But the merchant also has to trust the consumer. That's what we built at Yofi. Would love to derail this entire panel, but I promise I won't. It's what I specialize at. But super excited to have these amazing CEOs on this panel. I think I know most of you. Fran, hi, nice to get to know you. Heard so much about Hark, but I will give a brief introduction on all of you guys here. So Scott is a multi-time CEO and is a proven executive and investor who scaled early stage companies to over 100 million. Scott is leading No Fraud, advising startups. His favorite is Rome and Yofi, but I'll let him pick which one he likes the best. He brings deep go-to-market and operational expertise that helps him build strong products. Next, we have Fran. Fran is the CEO of Hark, co-founder and CEO. It is the AI native voice of customer platform and has over a decade of experience working with many customer-facing roles from startups to Fortune 50 companies.
Also on Rome.
Oh, we're a Rome company.
We're Rome people. Love Rome. Shout out
between Fran and Scott, why wasn't this hosted on Rome, guys?
It's a good topic.
That's a great topic.
Should we just derail?
Let's shift over to that. I think it's definitely something everybody should talk about.
And then last but not least, Julian, who's that runs Parcel Lab, or the founder and CPO of Parcel Lab, which is my favorite returns platform. They're shaping products that turn shipping and post-purchase moments into customer building experiences and a frequent voice in modern CX. He blends a beautiful technical depth with operational insights to help retailers thrive in an AI-driven world. If you haven't checked out Parcel Lab, what an amazing platform, and truly, I love the team that you guys have built.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and if we're talking tools, should we start the Slack versus MS Teams conversation now? I think that will be very fruitful.
I think they can both go away.
Scott's like, I'm exiting this entire session.
Alex, I didn't know that you were such a good hype person.
Oh yeah, that's my number one skill. I'm usually the biggest pessimist, but let me hype everyone up. No, I truly love Parcel Lab. The team is fantastic at Parcel Lab. So Angus, Larry, here's my shout out and love to both of you.
Yeah, don't shout at Larry. He gets enough praise already.
Just get to his head. Maybe I'll have to call Larry like Larry did in one of his podcasts when he called Adam Russell. Yep. But cool. This is how the session's going to be run. I'm going to ask you guys questions. There's going to be 2 questions for each CEO. I would love to get your feedback. Short answers, guys. We only have 30 minutes. I'm not going to say who that was directed at, but yes, this whole session is related to customer experiences and really understanding how AI is collapsing outdated workflows. Each of you guys are in this experience where fraud's very outdated. Reverse logistics is outdated. So how will AI kind of come in and improve this experience and where should we leverage it and be in the know in the next 12 months to stay competitive? So the first question is to Scott. Scott, you've scaled multiple revenue and growth organizations. From your seat, is AI actually changing customer acquisition and retention economics, or is this most what they will call deckware?
Yeah, I think you were directing the long-winded answers to me, so I'll try to be brief. Not a skill set that I've developed yet. Obviously, most of my experience personally has been on the sort of B2B side, but I'll try to speak to what I'm seeing on the B2C side and some of the companies in particular. I think the short answer is yes, but not in the places that people expect. I think that a lot of folks, and Julian, I've seen you post about this as well. I think a lot of folks put a lot of credence into, on the demand side and trying to build more traffic and audience. I don't know that it's doing a great job on that front. I think it's creating a lot more noise and benefit. I think there are companies that are doing it well, but they deeply understand their customers, the problem space. I think the places that it's showing up more so, and you're seeing companies like everybody leaned into content and creative and everything else. And I'd say you've seen like marginal uptick on that side of the house. I think the areas where you're seeing companies really get good at this is on the efficiency side, on the revenue recovery side, stitching together a lot of broken systems. If you think about just e-commerce broadly, e-commerce is not, retail buys a lot of technology, but you have to get to a certain size and scale to have a lot of like really strong technology resources. And I think there's just a lot of silos, a lot of inefficiency, a lot of waste. And where I see AI driving a lot of value for companies and a lot of growth is breaking down those silos and sort of stitching together a lot of the pieces. And I think that's where a lot of the opportunity will live. I think generally companies across the board start out at how do I sort of reduce headcount or save money, and drive efficiency with AI. I think we found that isn't exactly the way to do this, right? It's really about how you multiply the people you have, the impact that they have. I think you're seeing companies are starting to lean into more so now around, how do I make certain things scalable that weren't possible before? And then broadly, how do I unlock net new capability that didn't exist before? And I think the companies that are leading the way there are seeing a lot of value. So that's my headline.
Awesome. Fran, because what you guys do at Hark is making more confident, customer-driven decision faster, right? How do you use AI into the platform to A, listen to the ways that customers speak, and B, improve that efficiency as well? Like, how do you take some of those unstructured signals and kind of build the product around it, but also improve the customer workflow?
Yeah, I think AI gets lumped into this efficiency bucket a lot. We use AI to amplify the human voice more than anything. So we're actually using AI to where can you get more stories from your customers that can turn into insights. I think that's important for two reasons. One, customer acquisition cost has obviously increased, and I find the fastest growing companies are deeply understanding their cohorts. So moving from, which I'll probably get into later, but moving from qualitative data being a multiple choice question or a checkbox only gives you so much clarity around your customer base. And when you can unlock a new layer of qualitative data, get a higher response rate and get more context, you can really strengthen those cohorts to understand buying decisions. The other side is, I don't want to turn this conversation into NPS conversation at all, but customers are using NPS to understand like where are they going to deploy dollars, right? Like they're not going to want to bring someone in to buy a product that isn't performing well, which is going to cause chaos for the support team, which is going to lead to a poor customer journey, which is going to lead to an opportunity of a low customer lifetime value, where if they can get those people in with a hero product, that's a totally different experience and journey for net new customers or potential early customers. So by leveraging the ability to really deeply understand these customer bases and infer and make decisions based on that, it's not efficiency as much as like free up time to do. It's just like more clarity, right? Like I hear all the time, these leaders have all the Tableau and all the Looker dashboards. They've got data here and data there, and they've got zero clarity. And what I'm obsessed with is like, how do we use customer feedback to get you more clarity in a really new way in the way that humans behave and communicate today?
I don't have a good Bain stat here, but I feel like no one really understands how to read data and make data comprehensible. So Julian, do you have any feedback on how you guys use that within Parcel Lab, or like how you take this data and this unstructured mess to actually make operational changes?
First of all, I got to say, what I really love about Hark is actually it gives you this ability to really understand a single customer, right?
Julian, I love you, man. You're the man.
Right? Yeah, I know.
I love
Sometimes I am. But honestly, it's like so important. And even I see this internally for us, right? When we work with retailers, it's so important just to be in this one, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects and really see what's happening, right? All the numbers, all the dashboards, all the analytics tell you so many things, and they give you like a good framework for it. But to really understand what's going on, I feel any mechanism where you can get in front of a customer, and obviously Hark is a beautiful solution for that, right? Is super valuable. I think in general, and completely agree here with Scott as well. I mean, I would maybe even extend it to say that not only do most companies right now look at it, how can we save costs, but it's more even how can we magically just save costs, right? Ideally without putting any effort. Now there's AI and ChatGPT looks so smart, right? Why can't it just solve all of my problems tomorrow somehow? I don't really know how, and I don't want to look into it, but please just make this happen. And that's always like super interesting, right? So when we at Parcel Lab work with retailers and this as well, there is a little bit of obviously overhype about how easily AI really helps you unlock all of this value, right? I think the upside potential, I think we're all in agreement, is massive, right? But it just still doesn't fall from the skies. You still have to give context, knowledge, the right prompts. I mean, it starts with these simple things like how do you put in the right prompt, right? So that it actually can really generate value. And then we see value everywhere. We see reduction in where's my order inquiry cost. We see optimizations in logistical setup for returns routing. You can apply this everywhere as long as you can provide it with the proper data, context, and have a clear goal.
So Scott, I'm going to popcorn this off to you from Julian. So how do you decide as a CEO when to like add AI or certain workflows into your stream - change kind of the organization? So what I mean by organizational change, how do you start getting your employees and your team wrapped behind, okay, we have the data, when do we want to add these workflows into our products and to our day-to-day as well? I know that's a can of worms question.
Yeah.
No, it's a good one. I think it's something I think about all the time, and Alex, you know this firsthand now. It's sort of how do you move from kind of a group of humans that dabble to like a group of people that are truly data first, AI native, type workers. And I don't believe it's like robots or human versus humans. I think it's probably cyborgs that win, right? And I sort of just like the way it works. And so to do that, you have to really embrace it and learn it. So you can talk a lot about the operations. Obviously, there's a lot of components around like data capability, enablement, policy. We've done a lot of things inside the company to sort of give people the permission to work in different environments and use tools to try to solve things. But I think the bigger issue is the cultural shift, frankly. And so, how do you get people comfortable sharing, learning, growing? And there are some really cool companies out there that are doing this type of work where you can hire people to come in and really, there's always like there's a small subset of folks that are really good at leveraging these tools. Certain tools really are good out of the gates. You can use LLMs or chats to build projects and agents. Other situations require more technical knowledge and know-how to really bring to life and make work. And that's overwhelming for a lot of people. So there are ways to, activate your experts, but also bring in experts in different subject matter areas to really unlock that stuff. So I think the first thing you have to do is just get going, talk to your people. We created an AI council inside the business, which has no executive leadership inside of it, right? And that's with intention. So representation from every key functional area, and they surface a lot of insight, not about like ideas, although ideation is important, but what's holding us back from being able to like take advantage of this technology. And that gives you really good insight to figure out, okay, what is actually blocking people from being able to do the job. So that's where I spend a lot of my energy and time. I have very talented people on the data side to figure out the rest.
So maybe Fran, I'll pass this to you because it seems like at Hark, you guys have a lot of data first company. How do you guys decide when to build a product and versus buy a product out of the box? So trying to understand kind of your build versus buy decision. I know being a startup and then growing into a bigger company, it's always that I want to build, this is our domain, our expertise. So how do you decide when to leverage and buy AI versus building from scratch?
Yeah, I love the idea of the AI council. We're talking a lot about that now. I don't think it's as much like the build versus buy discussion is interesting. I think that a lot gets pushed over around like the maintenance of what happens thereafter. As Scott said, like these things are happening so fast. If you build with one potential model, like things shift there a lot. So like, are you going to want to shift models? Like, are you going to be at the forefront of that? Like, is that really driving ROI? I think the better discussion here with AI is like when someone comes to me and says, I want X. Well, what, like why, right? And I think the whole way that employees can make proposals internally is changing, right? Like it used to be, well, create like a brief and like, what would this do for you? And what's the potential ROI? And now you can be like, show me what you think this is going to look like with a prototype, like very, very quickly. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's like, how can we get to that moment quicker? And then we can have a deeper discussion around not like the features and benefits of what it does, but so like, what does it unlock you to do more? And how do you become more of an expert in your domain and where you are? So the build versus buy thing, I mean, I think some larger companies are taking interesting approaches to that, but for a small, scrappy startup, especially with the like marginal incremental cost of some of these AI tools that can help you get going and they can maintain it and stay at the forefront. I think it's much more about like, how do you propose this stuff internally to get to a decision? Because if you do it right, your team's going to be more adept with AI. They're going to understand more. They're going to go through the pilot understanding more. They're going to know more what questions to ask versus, oh, we want AI to do this. Hopefully that's clear and helpful.
No, it's a clear answer. I think most of the startups are selling you a cloud or a Claude versus like a Chat GPT wrapper, right? So how do you really separate from that and then decide what you need to build technically? I mean, it's your domain, your expertise. I'm obviously biased on this opinion, so I won't completely derail, and I'll go back to moderating. But
it's also like it's sort of like Netflix came and everybody's like, oh, I'm going to cut cable and do Netflix, and then there's like 55 streaming services you're paying for, and you're still paying for it. You're like, how the hell did this happen? So yeah,
we'll be one less soon. We'll be one less soon.
You have to be thoughtful. You definitely have to be thoughtful about it.
But honestly, with the LLM team, it's also super interesting, right? At the beginning of the whole AI wave, I think everybody felt the model is probably going to be the biggest moat there, and now it turns out it's a little bit probably more even distribution. Where we're back to the Apple model. ChatGPT just has the best brand, and that's keeping them ahead right now. It's super interesting, and I think the mechanisms behind build versus buy also shift basically every 6 months. Right? You need to reevaluate your criteria all the time.
So selfishly, Julian, would love to talk to you about like kind of the post-purchase and like understanding the logistics and support. A lot of people are adding, AI to customer support bots. Where do you see like the most interesting or fundamental use of AI in your space, especially in like the reverse logistics side? Yeah, absolutely. So I think there is obviously a lot of interest in the very flashy, fancy use cases. For example, conversational returns, right? It has a massive potential. Customer going in and instead of having them go through our normal returns UI, where you select some boxes and stuff, make it a bit more conversational. Why is that a big potential? Because I think you have a much higher chance of retaining some of this revenue. Suggesting exchanges, uneven exchanges, suggesting loyalty options instead of just getting money back. If there's a list of things, what do you want to do as a customer? You typically give me my money back, right? Even if there might be better options available. So I think this is a massive potential. At the same time, what I find very interesting is there is also a big potential of just bundling a lot of capabilities into your AI chatbot. It may start with support about where's my order and how do I register a return and all of this stuff. But then you can really naturally tie this into how do I learn about the products, right? Exactly as we had in the session before. People search for, I was recently looking for a new jacket. It's so hard to find a good jacket because the search box, you can't put in, give me a business casual jacket that is also warm and I can pop up the collar against the wind.
That's not a search query that works, right? But I'm on the market. If somebody knows somebody, send it to me. But
Julian, try being 6'7" and finding a jacket that fits.
Try being 5'2". It's even harder. Trust me, I can fit into children's clothing.
Fair enough. Yeah, I at least have the size advantage. Yeah. Anyways, so you know what I mean, right? Getting into the conversation at any of these spots is obviously hugely important, and we really try to use reverse logistics, any kind of this engagement as an opportunity to talk to the customer, right? At scale, personalized. I mean, that's also an excellent point to loop in any of your solutions as well, right? And I think that's really where the bigger value is. Yeah.
My ears might have perked. Where do you think we could tie in to the post-purchase scenario?
Well, I don't know. What could it be? Yeah. I mean,
what do you think it could be?
my easiest example, which is so trivial, it's ridiculous, right? Is retailers all the time think about, should we do free returns or should we charge for returns? That is the question. Should we charge for returns, right? Our customers come to us and say, hey, what do you guys think? Should we charge for returns? And the answer is, well, yes and no, right? You should charge for returns for your potentially fraudulent, abusive, low CLV customers, and take this money and don't keep it. Invest it into your high profitability, high trust, low fraud risk customers, right? So take from the bottom 10%, give it to the top 10%, and give them a $5 kicker on their next order. That is how you, I think, should think about free versus non-free returns, right? Well, that's obviously a good way to tie in. And just to tie in Fran as well, I mean, if somebody returns something for a reason that is other, at least then, right? Today we have like this little text box. Who likes to fill a text box, right? Just let me talk. So let me pop up a video. I just complain. I'm really angry about why this jacket wasn't like described, and then I send it off, and somebody like in procurement can take care of this.
Jacket was perfect, but the pop-up collar didn't hold, and the wind is still getting to me.
New York City in December is pretty cold. Yes.
Love that idea and notion of different dynamic policies depending on the
I know, it's crazy, right?
Crazy. Love that idea.
Yeah, I know.
So great. Bias here. I know we only have a few minutes left, but really want to take the time to get your guys' opinion and understand what is one AI shift or opportunity you're most excited for brands to take advantage of in the next 12 months? If it's not dynamic policies, what do you think it should be? And Fran, I'll start with you.
I think the ability for AI to get really proactive, to understand your business, give it access to the right things, have conversations with it, have it deeply learn, and be able to make you really better at your job is sounds simple, but it's actually quite difficult to get there and to do. I mean, it could get like, there could be very nuanced situations where you do like split shipping and things like that, and getting the AI to understand to like those really minuscule, like myopic parts of your business, to come in and act like a team member to you, and come to you and say, hey, like, you're launching this new product. Have you thought about reaching out to this cohort and what you could do there? Or you could, maybe your head of product got all this feedback. Could they do a campaign to follow up with these people and drive loyalty that way, and then tie in marketing? So I think data silos came up earlier in the conversation, but if you do this right, it should be a culture change phenomenon where you're getting people to work off of the same data, work off the same language. Clearly, like with what I'm obsessed with, I think the customer voice should be a part of all those discussions. But that's where I see AI taking the next step from being like, hey, efficiency, to, hey, we're working on all cylinders here, and we're working together, like really truly aligned more than we ever have before.
Totally agree. I'm going to ask one follow-up question. If you had to say your favorite, I'd say AI forward company that you think is going to become more popular in the next 12 months, what would it be?
Parcel Lab.
I love the love in this group. Julian, I'm going to ask you the same question about the 12-month trend plus your favorite AI forward company in the next.
Do we do just round trip then? Yeah. So then
I mean, you got.
I'd say no fraud. Exactly. Yeah. I think honestly, but seriously, I think this is such a massive potential, and a lot of retailers don't really think about what's the right way to assess new customers. Do I have a good understanding of where they are post-purchase? There's so much automation for, I'm starting with the second question now with my favorite tool, obviously, right? But there's so much automation for assessing customer value during the conversion cycle. And then once you have somebody like actually in your ecosystem, then there's no real segmentation often happening anymore. Best case maybe by loyalty or something like this, right? But not really for a new customer. What should I offer? Is this like for me a good customer to double down on to give the best service, or should I be more on the cautious side? I think that's super important. For the general trend, honestly, got to say, a friend took the words out of my mouth. That's my. So I go for my second best option maybe, which is I think what we see really is, especially those edge cases, and Fred touched on this a little bit as well, right? Where something catastrophically went wrong in fulfillment or a customer's experience in general, and a lot of different data sources have to be pulled in. This is where you typically see, and everybody of you have experienced this yourselves, right? You email to customer service and it's really hard for them to get a grip on it because there's so much different data they need and knowledge, and like my experience or history with the retailer, etc. Where if you put in an agent in before, you know how agents are, right? They're quick, they're always available, never get tired, never get grumpy because it's end of day and they're hungry and want to go home, right? So there's a bit more neutral gathering of all of this information and then compiling this as an information for your CS agents. Completely different topic, very selfishly. You know what I'm excited about for AI in the next 6 months is an AI that creates good slides, like a good deck.
I thought it was going to be shopping to find your jacket.
Well, that would be, I'm kind of over this. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'll just freeze this winter. But like this PowerPoint thing, I'm like, this must be doable. Yesterday, I tried uploading our PowerPoint master into Opus 4.5. And after I told it 5 times, it should really use the master. It actually created a deck using our PowerPoint master. I was like, oh my God, this is the future. And yes, I know we're on Microsoft. We're not on Google Sheets. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you could try Nano Banana. It did not work well for me. So
that's true. Yes.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, better. There's definitely better tools than PowerPoint for sure.
I know. Yeah.
And Scott, last but not least.
Well, thanks. I do think probably least, but I probably think about it a little bit differently. I get excited about, so I think that there is a lot of paradigms that are changing, things that are historically been sort of focus areas, particularly in sort of the land of retail. You think about like how much energy has been devoted to customer acquisition over the years, marketing automation tools and technologies, et cetera. And there's been a lot of tools introduced to sort of like the CX universe, but they're isolated. We've talked a lot about silos. I think there's this very unique, rare opportunity for the CX community to really rise inside of organizations and play a much more impactful and strategic role, not to discount the incredible work that's being done every single day. But I think that in most of my conversations with CX leaders, they're not always at the table. And I know that's people don't like to talk about this or admit that, but I think it's completely wrong. And I think 2 years from now, and I think AI is going to help break down these silos, help folks create these really dynamic, personalized experiences at scale in the post-purchase world. This notion of like a CX automation that takes advantage of all the information that's out there and really reconciles that. Whether that's an agent, a support agent that's doing the work, or humans, I actually don't believe it's going to be all agentic. I think those are symptomatic of a deeper rooted issue. But I think the opportunity to like raise the CX profile, to see more CXOs at the table inside of organizations. I liken it to every startup in the world, right? You start out, it's all about acquisition. You hire recruiters to bring on talent versus, HRBPs to build your talent and create it. You hire salespeople instead of support people to onboard your customers properly and build your brand. In a world where people are going to outsource discovery in different ways to agentic solutions, to buy from me now type products, your customer experience is your brand as much as your product is your brand. right? And you're going to have to really devote yourself to creating experiences that resonate and last, so that people come back to you, because that's ultimately how you're going to build differentiation, better, more profitable businesses in the future. And I think it's going to be the CX community that's empowered to rise up and do that. So that's what I get particularly excited about. And I think that there is so much opportunity to break down these silos and like bring that to life. So that's what I get excited about. Quick answer on like, AI technologies. There's a company out there called Anything, which is like lets anybody build their own apps. It's really cool. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a really cool company. It's probably the one that I'm like most jazzed about, but it's totally separate from the e-com world.
I love that. Well, guys, thank you so much for all your insights. Julian, hope you find a jacket soon enough so we don't have you freeze to death in New York.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
Everyone who's joining us, thank you for joining us. I think someone in the chat's looking for a job in machine learning.
Yeah, I saw that too. Julian, the problem is you have such good hair that you don't want to wear a hood, but if you just succumb to getting a hoodie.
I'm happy to help you with that,
you.
Julian.
Thank you.
Happy to help with that.
I gotta say, I'm also a little bit proud of my hair, so thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
Awesome.
Everyone in this call had great hair, so Dave, it's back to you, and we'll get out.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll let you guys jump. Thanks so much, Alex. Thanks so much, team, for jumping on. So appreciate you guys taking the time. So next session here is we kind of invite John and Dave on the stage. John's coming from Pattern. We're going to be talking about the new CX playbook for commerce brands. The Pattern story is amazing. The brands they work with are amazing, and John has been instrumental in that growth. So excited to jump into this one, Dave. John, thanks for jumping on. Dave, over to you.
Yeah, let's can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
No, Mike? You do?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Little tech issues on my side. So look, super excited to have John on, and honestly honored. And you are one of the kind of the luminaries in this space. You guys have gone through a meteoric growth over the last several years, like just what you guys have been able to do. And I think it's going to give insights to people today, because you have a perspective at a scale and volume that very few people in the world have. I mean, it's, as we get into some of this, but you guys just went through a pretty compelling IPO. Again, it's just some of the things you guys have done, and you've led the go-to-market through this entire process. So I'm very excited to hear a little bit more about some of your lessons learned, some of the good, some of the ugly. But let's get it. So first, thank you for doing this. A little bit of background, like where are you from? How'd you get into this? Like, give us a little bit of the personal story, like a bit of a Shaggy Dog story, if you will.
Yeah. Well, you hear me okay as well?
Yeah, we got you perfect.
So, so I grew up in Mill Creek. I'm the fourth of 8 kids, so classic middle child syndrome, always clamoring for attention, no love. My dad ran an ad agency for 30 years, so I kind of grew up in that world. Did an undergrad at BYU in advertising, and kind of was a creative copywriter and TV spots, and kind of grew up in that world in the age of, as the internet really started to unfold and digital marketing kind of became a thing, et cetera. Went on a tour of duty of different kind of degree collecting sprees in New York City and Chicago. And then ultimately kind of worked ran my own agency for a while, and then ultimately went into tech marketing, worked for Apple when Steve Jobs was still there at the company. They were just launching the iPad that summer, was an intern there.
Crazy stories, got to be crazy stories.
Yeah, so many different stories. But ultimately went into kind of telecom and high tech, and then moved back to Utah and was still working for kind of Bay Area companies, helped launch the Google Cloud business for a company called Rackspace out of San Antonio. And then at this point, Dave, who is like one of the best, I think, top entrepreneurs in all of Utah. Yeah. But he does not have kind of like a background in entrepreneurship and starting companies. He like worked for the church, and he was like, a super smart, just a baller kind of human being, as well as entrepreneur, and asked me to come over and be the first marketer at this company he was running called iServe. And my family and friends all give me like a lot of sideways glances, and they're like, I think this might be like a Ponzi scheme. Anyway, so long story short, it just
turns out it wasn't a Ponzi scheme.
Turns out it was not a Ponzi scheme. And so yeah, all my background's in marketing, but Dave tapped me on the shoulder about 9 months into the role and said, hey, I want you to run sales as well. which there was only one sales guy, so it wasn't like this huge thing. And then we had the privilege, as you alluded to build the go-to-market. The company was just over $100 million in revenue when I joined. And we are certainly, going to close over 2 billion and hopefully on our path to the next billion after that. So it's been a super fun ride. We went public in September. We're now traded on the NASDAQ, and that's like kind of a dream come true. So it's been a fun ride. Just announced today, actually, Authentic Brands Group chose us to be their, they're the ones that own like, DC Shoes and
they're a big deal. So and
you guys and all these massive brands. And so anyway, we just have done the thing, and it's been super fun, but I think it's very, very early days as well.
Well, and what's interesting about your company and what you guys do is you work with some of the top 100 most, I would say, recognizable large scale brands in the world. Like, and you're ultimately a data platform, even though you're helping with lots of creative, you're really a data platform, which means there are billions and probably even, tens of billions of data points going through your platform that I think today will be very insightful to people, right? So give us like the elevator pitch of like Pattern, because I don't know that everybody, you're a little bit of this sneaky organization that's helping companies at massive scale, but I don't know that, you guys don't brag a lot, and you're not necessarily out there as much.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever like put up a billboard. I think we kind of like
no billboard. Okay, we got to solve that. Yeah.
Running under the radar. Most people have only heard of us because they've driven by our building over by Tsunami and R&R in Lehigh. But yeah, I mean, we've got more than 20 global offices, more than 2,000 employees. Like I said, we're in the billions of dollars of revenue, and at a very high level, brands use us to execute at scale on e-commerce channels, predominantly marketplaces. So think of Amazon, TikTok increasingly is a marketplace, Walmart, Target, and then a host of other Cdiscount, Bull, Zalando, Tmall, JD.com, Douyin, a bunch of those that maybe customers haven't really like heard of, but these are all around the world. That swath of kind of like transactions. I mean, I think everyone obviously knows Amazon. The packages show up ad nauseum at our porches every day, but that swath is about $3 trillion. So it's a massive swath of the GDP and global GDP. And it turns out it's actually not that easy for brands to figure out how to do that thing. And so they allow us, and they work with our platform to be able to kind of sell cheaper, better, faster than they could do it on their own. And our business model is a little bit weird in that, they don't pay us to do the service for them. We pay them. We buy their product from them. We buy it at some version of like wholesale and then resell it at retail. There's a bunch of different versions of products that we sell that don't include that buy sell, but I would say like the main thrust,
the bulk of it is that, right?
Yeah. You are a brand selling something on Amazon, on TikTok, on whatever it is, and like you're like, I think this is a little bit too complex. I think I should be growing faster, and I would love to partner with you. That's kind of like the main motion that we do with Pattern, and we grow brands very, very well, and we love it, and we grow together. So it's a true partnership.
That makes sense. That's super interesting, which means you guys actually carry a lot of the risk of not doing it right, which I think today we're going to talk about then what is right. And let's jump right into the AI side of it, because you guys just have released a study. Again, you have access to so much data. Like we can kind of, peel this thing open. And let's and I talked about it with Leah. I think we're going to hear about this a lot, but the whole discovery process is changing. It's being disrupted, right? So give us your sense of what's happening. Again, you carry all this liability because you're basically partnering with all these brands to take them to market. So you have to nail this. So what's changing, and we'll talk about how to nail it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what I said earlier, which is like, it's really hard for brands to do this on their own. We ran a study across North America, more than 300 brands, and said, how many people do you have dedicated to e-commerce? And more than 70% said, fewer than 5, basically. And so it's kind of crazy on how much these brands are being required to go do. And I guess to speak to your point specifically, as you think about it, and I think I probably even have a slide for this. So maybe you guys can bring it up here. But like this whole it's really fascinating, especially for an old person like me that's like grew up in a world where we had like barely cable TV was kind of coming out, and it was like you had like only a handful of channels. So I think if you go probably skip through a bunch of these slides and go to the one that kind of shows the spread across, how people are discovering products today. That one right there.
Yeah. Oh, go back one. Yep.
So this is really, really fascinating. I mean, again, I grew up on the left. I'm a kid of the 90s, and really kid of the 70s, but like growing up, kind of coming of age in the 90s. And I remember when like the web came out. And so that's that first kind of green layer on there of Yahoo and Google. And that was like I was like, grew up in a world of catalogs, right? Where we were like, this time of year, the Sears catalog was the internet. And I was like looking through crap and trying to like steal it from my brothers and sisters. And so that was the world. And now obviously, web search came along. Web search is still massive. But as you think about that, especially in the world of e-commerce and product search, that gave way, that kind of like Google search gave way to e-commerce search. And I think it's not surprising, but like even today, even on this slide, it says it kind of ended in 2015. It's full bore.
It's still going. It's still going, right?
50% of all product searches in the US start on Amazon today. I think if you know that, you don't even search for stuff on Google anymore. You just like go straight into Amazon and like, it's going to be here tomorrow. Well, then like social discovery started to come about. I would say like there's so many different groups that have tried to get social going, even like Meta and Google tried to get social going, but it just didn't really hit.
It's not landed. It's really not landed until, that's right.
Yeah. So TikTok is now this like crazy wave. I'm sure we have some slides we can go through later, but like so many people are not only on that today, especially earlier generations, but like they're spending inordinate amounts of time, like hours every single day in the United States using this stuff. And then as you think about, okay, well, the next thing after that is really all the agentic stuff and what is happening and people spending a lot of time on search. And all of those are different. All of those use AI in different ways. But I think
you can't ignore any one of them then.
Right.
So you have to be, basically we've just walked through the evolution, basically starting with the advent of, Al Gore and the internet. Thank you, Al Gore. And all the way to this like premise where now people are searching. And I do love the point, like, even if Amazon's more expensive, we know it's here tomorrow. And so if you're not giving Amazon all the love, like you're just going to miss, buyers, you're going to miss purchases. So give me a sense of what you're seeing in agentic search. Like where's the trend happening? Again, we're going to hear a lot about this, I think, over the next several months, but what are you seeing? What's working? What's not working? Like, kind of explore it with us just a little bit.
It's still so early and it changes every single day. But for example, OpenAI is kind of one of the pioneers, obviously, in agentic commerce. And they just allowed, I think it's like Glossier, Skims, and I think Etsy to be able to actually sell. So you can now transact directly on an agentic platform like ChatGPT and, Apple Pay, kind of have it sent to you. Now, this is a far stretch from somewhere like Amazon, right? Because it's like, well, on Etsy, at least you're riding the rails of an actual established kind of commerce platform. Other than that, it's mostly like a Shopify plugin. So you're definitely not going to get same day delivery. You're probably not even going to get next day delivery, but it's cool. It's still fine. And, the analysis that we've kind of been able to pull together is it's just like Turkey 5 or like, Cyber Monday, Thanksgiving. It was like $80 billion influenced by this. And I think, if you wanted to pull up that deck again and just go to that next slide.
I think which slide is it?
The next slide right after this. This
is the one.
Mostly on social, but this is fascinating. And this is now even outdated. So you would know this is like 2024 data, but this is already outdated, but it's
the trend. The trend is the same trend.
Yeah. And it's like super incriminating as a Gen Xer to be like, dude, like 22% of my people are still finding stuff on TV. Like, who even watches TV?
Is that like, I saw this slide. I'm like, wait, like, are there people like you and I are both Gen Xers, and it's a little bit shameful. Like, let's be honest.
Boomers, unfortunately. But like, I think this is like that whole thing, which is like, like we buy on Amazon, but I'm like, dude, my kids do not send me anything from Amazon. They send me stuff from TikTok. They send me stuff from Reels. That's where they're spending all of their time today. And I would say a lot of that same thing is even ChatGPT. Like my kids do all their homework on ChatGPT. They're like, maybe cheating with ChatGPT. So it's
who knows what? Yeah, who knows what that actually means?
Where so many people are spending the majority of their time, and this is like an existential threat to Amazon, right? It's an existential threat to Google. Now, I'm super long on Google. If you've played around with Gemini 3 and stuff, it is like
it's so
phenomenal.
good.
And
it's
so like
good.
the pivot that they've had to make, because you look at the degradation of traditional search and organic search, and it's like this crazy threat to their business model that kind of almost feels like it came out of nowhere. But back to your comment, like these are the trends that are affecting. All that we know is that the concept of product discovery and the stranglehold that so many massive brands have had on a lot of different commoditized products and even new products. You think about Nike and the kind of turmoil that they're going through. You think about like, Hydro-Jug and what they're doing to Stanley just because of like, lead poisoning fears. Like that was like, I don't know, that was less than a year ago probably. And you just see like, now Stanley's amazing. They're still doing great stuff, but like, it is just such a dynamic, competitive space that is all being affected by social commerce and all these LLMs. My CEO likes to tell the story of like, he's like, we're a Ford family. Like we've only ever bought Fords and like Teslas in our family. And all of a sudden, he has 10 kids. They have 10 kids. Their youngest daughter came home and was like, I'm buying a RAV4. He's like, what the hell?
He's like
no one bought a Toyota. Why? She's like, ChatGPT, I put in all the plugs. And that's what told me that I should buy that. I found actually 2 other young women that bought RAV4s based on the same recommendation. So it's like these like very established ruts of consumer preference are absolutely starting to dynamically change in the face of some of these product discovery things. It's awesome.
And there's a slide we have in your deck from SCM Rush. I think our producer, Mike, do you want to pull that up for us?
Oh, yeah.
This one's interesting.
It just shows like where all of this is headed.
That's
and
right.
What is happening from brands. Yeah, it's like a bunch of like colored with a white background. But it absolutely shows where a bunch of this stuff is headed in terms of referral traffic. And I think you heard Walmart is like 30% of their referral traffic is now coming from LLMs. Like it's upon us.
And you kind of, here's the difficult thing I think brands have to deal with. In the spring, Google was being disrupted. You said this, Google's being disrupted. Basically they're like traditional search is dead. You should be thinking about, Grok and obviously, OpenAI. And then, 3 weeks ago, Google threw down the gauntlet.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, right? Like their in search AI is dominating search right now, their AI recommendation. And so I think as a retailer, as a brand, it's really hard to know where to put the money, to put the investment, because it's changed. Like every week there's a new model, there's a new vendor. Like, so could Bing turn into the thing? Maybe. Like, I don't know. Like they haven't been, but
yeah.
So
all bets are still on the table in this crazy world. So it's getting really, really fun.
What would you recommend? So if I'm a mid-sized retailer right now, like where do I start thinking about search and getting found? Like if you're a large organization, it's easier because you can bet everywhere. But if I'm a mid-sized retailer or brand, I kind of like, where should they put their chips?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we actually offer something for free. So I think, again, if you pull up that slide again, I think maybe it's the next slide after that one, this concept of a GEO scorecard. And, Pattern sits on not just billions, we literally sit on trillions of data points. And what we're able to do is, because most of the traffic and search traffic for products is going through Amazon today or other marketplaces, and we sit on top of all that search data, and we know what search keywords and keywords phrases are going to which listings, and then which listings are actually converting into sales. We kind of have like the family tree of all search that is going toward most product sales in the United States. And what that allows us to do is, in any given category, we know all keywords leading to your products as well as to all of your competitors' products, and we can reverse engineer all that search data into queries that we then flow through the most popular LLMs to be able to say, like, what is the best ashwagandha supplement for women in their 40s? Or what is the best, whatever it happens to be, like e-scooter that I should buy my kid for Christmas? Or what is so we know all that data, we reverse engineer it at the brand level, flow it into all of these kind of agentic engines basically, and give you a sense of like, where are you performing? Who are your biggest competitors for all of those different phrases, and which LLMs are kind of recommending you, or at least showing you as an option, because that's ultimately what you want. You want to be able to know what these are all super considered purchases. And so if you go to the next slide, I think there's probably a QR code that anyone here can.
It's a free analysis, right?
Free scorecard. We just flow these in, but it gives you a sense not only of where you are showing up at scale, and then also give you some recommendations on things that you should do. And we're not the only ones doing GEO scorecards, so there's probably a bunch, but I will say we are the only ones doing these that sit on all of that proprietary.
At that scale of data, right? At that scale of data.
Really gives you a sense of like, we are literally running all of your data against these LLMs and hitting it. So at a product level, from an e-commerce perspective, I can't imagine anyone's kind of doing a better job than this. But we're still learning as well. This is definitely not perfect. But if you want to do that would be like a free thing for the audience that would absolutely make sense to go try and do.
So I think, look, for those watching live and even afterwards, I think this is a pretty valuable asset. So okay, let's shift, because there's another topic that as we were preparing, I was like, holy cow. Let's talk about AI generated content and the trust gap there. So this is fun. It's a little spooky. But let's give me your take on like some of the good and the bad, because there's for sure both.
Yeah. So if you Mike, if you go to the slide after this, right here. So this is really fun. I don't know if it's animated or it's not. On my version, it is. But basically, everyone is seeing AI driven content. Even if you don't know you are. If you're on Reels, if you're on TikTok, you are seeing a ton of AI content. The funny thing is that if you can go through even the next couple of slides, we are just not seeing as much AI generated content on actual product listings, right? And I speak at a lot of shows, and I'm always shocked. I usually do like a raise of hand of who is actually using AI driven copy or not even copy of actual content. So if you go to the next slide.
This was my favorite slide. I love this slide.
So I saw this on Twitter, and if you don't know True Classic, it's a great company.
Yeah.
We actually sell some of their stuff, but it's like, they're basically like target, people like me, because they're kind of like Spanx for dad bods. And so they're trying to make you like look good.
You should go into content writing. It's so good.
Yeah. So anyway, so they target men. I think they just barely launched women like last week or something like that. But proverbial target is men trying to look good and feel good. And this is like the prototypical. This was their ad on the left. On the right, apparently Meta had something that the head of e-commerce didn't like check on, that was like, we reserve the right or allow us to like boost your post or redo it with AI and show it. And this was the actual ad that Meta put on and was running. And the people at True Classic lost their mind. They were like,
of course,
this is not our product. This is not our target market. And I'm like, well, I mean, she looks amazing. Like, she probably would buy this. They're like, this isn't even our product. So this is what ends up.
Okay, but that you just said, it's not even their product. So like, the challenge is like, it has so much potential, but like, I mean, this is like a fundamental betrayal of their brand, right?
Yeah,
like
totally. And their target, and just everything. And so if you go to the next slide, like there's just like so much promise in, AI driven, because it looks beautiful. Like, look, this is all AI driven. Go to the next slide, all AI driven, and it looks amazing. But if you go to the next slide and you're like, it's close, but now go to the next slide or like advance it. So the one on the right is the actual product. And I like objectively, the one on the left looks better. But if you start to like look closely, like the actual capsule number is off here. The logo is completely bastardized by AI. AI takes like all these liberties of like, let's just remove per serving. I don't like it. And it's like this like crazy art director that just like is like, not helpful at all. And so this is what we end up seeing. And so what we decided to do is figure out how to do AI driven high fidelity to the brand, as well as like the actual like product, the actual photography itself. And if you go to the next slide, we kind of created this thing and launched it last summer called the Portal. Not last summer, this summer, but basically this shows you, this is like one of the brands that we represent. It's called U Theory, and you can see the actual logo is kind of like this like gradient, beautiful kind of like holistic kind of like world. And you can look at ChatGPT and Gemini, and it looks like some weird amoeba or petri dish. You can see the Portal on the right, which is still not completely 100% there, but way closer. And the way that we get that level of fidelity, if you go to the next slide, we literally created a hardware product called the Portal. Skip past this slide as well. And this is like basically this massive, I don't know, 10-foot box or something like that has it has like a mechanical arm, has a photo studio within it, has all these 4K screens. And we basically take shots of all of these different products while flowing through. If you go to the next slide, I don't know if you can even show the video on here. This is a video of it in action, but this allows us to create AI-driven content at massive scale. You can go to pattern.com and look at it. I don't know if we even have the video, but basically the next few slides will show you the output. Like this is all AI-generated content, very, very high fidelity. If you go to the next slide, another one totally different, but very, very similar type of a vibe with the products. And I'm just showing you like some dietary supplement type things, but this works across a ton of different stuff. And we are now working with our brands to be able to do like, these are the sorts of things that photo shoots would take forever and cost a ton. And we do this, by the way, like we have a full creative team that is working with our brands doing this sort of stuff. So but this is allowing mass scale.
So the thing I think people need to hear, because at your scale, some of the attendees here are probably not big enough to necessarily use you. But there's a core principle behind this, which is be very, if you care about your brand, which everything you've heard today, like again, Leah Johns earlier was like, look, in a new AI world, everything is about your brand. It's the quality of your product. It's your brand. And so you cannot sacrifice your logo. Like all of this stuff really matters. And so be super wary of this AI generated content because it's a fundamental betrayal of your brand. And there are companies like yours who can help with this. So one of the lessons actually I would have people take out of today is like, do the research. Don't just assume it's going to work great. Don't just assume it's going to represent your brand. I mean, again, my favorite still is, the dad bod product. Like it's such a good example of it just going wrong. So, okay. I love that. So let's talk about like practical plays for mid-market brands. So like if you were to leave, don't do it. But if you were to leave Pattern and just go, join a company that's like 20 million or 50 million, like a brand tomorrow, like where would you start? Like what would you do in the CX kind of growth motion? Like, is there a couple of like, oh, I would do this, I would do this, I would do this?
Yeah. I think, well, first of all, if I left Pattern, I would not go back into commerce, but just to say, if I was in this world, I mean, honestly, I would actually look and see like, what is the aptitude and the gumption and the margin profile for the company I'm at to be able to try to insource this and do it myself. There are a lot of benefits to doing it yourself, by the way. And I would say AI has the promise of enabling you to do it better, faster, cheaper than anyone. That's like Pattern's existential crisis in a weird way.
That's right.
But at the same time, what we benefit from is like, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors and all this stuff. And it's actually turns out it is still hard. Otherwise you will end up like the true classic kind of like a vibe. So, but I think that's like the first like planning kind of thing of like, what is our appetite and investment envelope to be able to kind of do this right and do it. That's right. Otherwise I would start looking pretty like aggressively at what kind of partnerships can I extend out and kind of lean on. If I was going to do it myself though, that's the first thing I would do. And then the second thing is just back to that customer experience. We have more data at our fingertips and more tools in place to allow us to truly gauge what is that customer experience. And the North Star, this might be kind of silly, like the North Star for me, my whole team knows it. We literally like talk about it all the time, is Chick-fil-A. Because I'm like, dude, they have dialed it. Like I can order a chicken sandwich anytime. I can have it delivered to me. I can have it. I could show up and get into like a VIP lane. Like it's all the best. It's all good. And I'm like, I'm not even necessarily a huge fan of the food, even though I do.
Doesn't matter, but you'll go there just because the experience is so good.
Process and like it's the most profitable, like fast food restaurant for a reason. They've anticipated every single step of the journey, whether it's on the app, whether it's in the front door service with a smile, whether it's in my car, whether it's DoorDash. Like they have anticipated and maniacally, I have to assume, gone through every little stretch of this to be like again, if like I've ordered something and it's not ready yet, they literally tell me to pull over to the side so that the throughput can keep coming through. And I'm like, I aspire to that level of like just like customer success and experience, because it makes people enjoy the experience and want to come back. So I would be like maniacal, and this is what we're doing even every day at Pattern. Turns out we're in a multi-billion-dollar, e-commerce business.
Same problem
than a sandwich, but like it's still the same principle of bring everything down to the basics and try to not necessarily automate all the things. Maybe just get rid of some of the steps that you realize you don't need.
You don't even
automate
need
where appropriate, but the human touch, like I don't want a completely automated chicken sandwich. I actually like the service with a smile too when it counts and it doesn't slow everything down. So that's ultimately, I guess, how I would frame that.
That's what you would think about. Okay, look, we're out of time. If one last piece of advice. So if you just said, look, you're running a CX team, you're running a go-to-market team. Here's my one thing I would say, like, and like, this is the one learning, what would it be?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's so much talk about like whatever robots and automation and AI and like we're never going to AI, at least hopefully not in our lifetime, AI our way out of humanity. And so like personalization, and we have this other framework that I call KHP, and it's like being knowledgeable, helpful, and present with all of your customers. And I still like deeply believe the other P is a squared, is personalized. But like, if you are knowledgeable, helpful, present, and personalized with any of your people, like that's what people want.
That's
and
what
you
they
can
want.
use tools and you can use scale and you can whatever, but like, don't let that get in the way of actually just being a human and delivering something really magical and special to someone. So that's what I would recommend.
That's absolutely brilliant. Look, we're honored to have you here, John. Like genuinely, I really appreciate you doing this. How do they, if people want to learn more, if they want to reach out to you, like what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, pattern.com. You can email me, john@pattern.com. I don't like sell my email to spam robots and crap like that. But like, yeah, if you want to reach out, or we're just down the road, feel free to come in and say hello.
Perfect. Amazing. All right, Gabe. Awesome. Not bad, right? Not bad.
Super exciting, John. Again, thanks for joining. We'll let you jump, Dave, as well.
Thanks,
really
John.
interesting session, I think, to kind of dive into this discovery and the new, CX playbook for commerce brands. So, guys, we're wrapping up kind of our live portion of the event. The next piece, before we kind of break into our different tracks, which I'll talk about in just a second, is this awards piece. And I wanted to just take a minute on this. We had just an interesting idea when, again, this was kind of a grassroots effort to throw on this AICX Summit. We had so many people who couldn't get to shop talk, and they were feeling like, hey, we don't have the time and the money. And we thought, let's just do a free event and free, no speaker paid, nobody paying for their registration. But what's a way that we can recognize some of those contributors out in the market? And so randomly, we started sitting around, a little committee of us, and we had a little nomination process, and we reached out, and next thing you know, we have like 10,000 votes for these people and these companies who are really making a difference in the CX space. People and companies you should be following. You should be on LinkedIn, listening to some of their thoughts and opinions. And again, a little more of a grassroots effort, but we did want to take the time to actually recognize those individuals in today's call. So I want to see if I can grab them and bring them on stage as I kind of pull this up. So our first category was the top CX leaders. And again, really cool to see these four float to the top. And I thought it'd be fun today to just grab a couple of them and maybe just get their quick thoughts on what the heck's going on in AI and CX as we kind of wrap up our AICX Summit. So we've got Roma and Maria. Is Maria on? Maria, you there? She's working on it, maybe. Maybe not. Let me know, Mike, if she's able to jump in. If not, Roma, it's just you and I today. So again, congratulations. That was so cool. That was really fun.
Thank you, Gabe. I'm really honored. Again, I mentioned this in my LinkedIn post, but I'm very honored to have been recognized alongside some incredibly talented peers that I have in this industry. And again, I'm very grateful to anyone who is supportive.
Yeah. Look, like I said, it was a really fun activity, and wanted to see if I could pull yourself and Maria on. Again, first and foremost, congratulations. But, as you've thought about this CX space, What do you feel like is the reason, some of these different people have started to look to people like yourself and say, hey, we need some help. What's going on? I mean, you're obviously working a little bit on this, but why you? Why do you feel like you got that kind of support? Because it was a lot of support.
Yeah, for sure. I would say I'm certainly not alone in this. But I think that a lot of the other folks who are also nominated, we're all working towards a common goal. And we're continuously advocating for our consumers while also scaling with a high transformation digital environment. And ultimately, I do think that a part of my work in this space is democratizing the benefit of tools like these, not only in the consumer facing context, but also in the background where we can really use these insights to drive cross-functional.
That's so cool. I love it. And it looks like, and how am I saying? It's Marianella, is that correct? Marianella? Did I get that right? You there? Can you hear us? No? Uh-oh. She still can't hear us. You're hearing me okay though, Roma, right?
Yes.
Oh, shoot. Okay. We'll see if we can kind of keep playing with that. Hopefully she can get in here. So as we finish this, Roma, I love that idea. You're obviously a practitioner in the space as well. What advice do you have for those that are trying to cut through the noise, who are trying to keep abreast and stay on top of all the changing environment? Thoughts to the group, probably where you were maybe just a year or two ago.
Yeah, to keep things incredibly concise, I would say building with your consumer advocacy first in mind is the best way to deliver exceptional experiences, maximize your ROI, and continue to evolve with an ever-changing set of targets in this moment.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, really appreciate you jumping on. And again, congrats to the three others. Again, people who are making a difference in this environment and trying to help us push the boundaries on how to do great CX in the new world. So, Roma, we got some cool stuff coming your way. You'll see some stuff on social. But again, thank you for all your work, and thanks for jumping on for just a minute today.
Of course. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks, Roma. All right. So that wraps it for our AICX leaders. Really excited to have them. Oh, I wanted to try Marianella one more time. Let me see if I can get her. And is she on? Is she there? Can she hear us now?
I am so sorry. I couldn't hear you, and I saw a lot of movement, and I'm like, oh my God. So I'm sorry for that. It was my connection.
Actually, this worked great. I just got done with Roma, and actually we'll just do this for a minute. So I was going to kind of do you both. But look, we kind of did this grassroots recognition for people who are making a difference in CX, and your name really bubbled to the top. I don't mean to put you in an awkward position, but how come? What do you feel like you've been doing to earn such this cool recognition award in this community that needs thought leaders like yourself?
Yeah. I think the main driver here, it was really the collaboration with my team. I basically called out the nomination, and everyone was really, really excited. I am really excited that this year I got a lot of commitment from cross-functional team. And as customer experience users, we know that struggle in trying to get, the action through and getting those data to understand the leverage and the opportunity for the business. So I'm really happy to get that support.
No, look, I mean, I think to be able to get to rally that group and have them jump in and support you, I think demonstrates a lot about your own personal brand and what you've been able to do. You've obviously been doing CX for a while. Again, congratulations. I was looking at your career last night. A lot of people trying to navigate the noise and all the stuff that's changing, and how do you do CX great in this modern world where AI and technology and people and tools and there's just a lot going on. What advice would you have for those leaders who are starting or who are trying to kind of struggle through and find that way to really create great CX or great customer experience in this ever-changing environment?
Yeah, I would say that to focus on the final goal, we want to provide the best service. We do want to provide speed on that service. So leveraging those tools to make that speed or provide that efficiency in the service is not bad. But one thing is to leverage and know how to use it and how to prepare that environment for that that process, than having to jump on just because of a push of wording and key and buzzwords that everyone is mentioning. So just kind of set up the standard, set up the goal, and like we all have that final strategy of getting that support, the right answer, the right remediation or whatever is it that we need to get through. So I would advise to kind of set the ground and leverage those tools, but not go deep just because of what others are mentioning that we need to do.
Yeah, look, so much of it right now is you got to kind of get your hands dirty, get in and experience some of this stuff to be able to create that change. So again, really appreciate you jumping on. Sorry for some of the technical issues, but wanted to take a minute and again, just recognize a few of you who again bubbled to the top of making such a difference. We need to come together. There is so much change going on. So again, we have a couple fun things coming your way. We'll do some fun social stuff, but again, congratulations on being recognized as a top AIX leader in our community. So again, thank you so much and have a great day. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, again, that was now total our top CX leader awards there. Again, couple others we didn't get to bring on, but again, ASIP, Elizabeth, congratulations. Awesome to see that on that front. So now we wanted to move to top technology, those technologies that are making such a big difference in the space. And again, so much going on here. So many new technologies popping up every day that are helping brands and companies make a difference in the way they treat their customers. But a lot of these started to float to the top. And so wanted to bring on Alana. Alana, thanks so much for joining. She's coming from Gorgeous. How are you, Alana?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Gabe?
Yeah, well, excited. And again, thanks for just jumping on and representing one of these amazing brands. But wanted to just ask kind of a couple thoughts and get your questions. Again, Gorgeous making some big noise, specifically in this kind of ecosystem of AICX. What do you feel like, and I know this is one of those kind of put you on the spot moments, but why do you feel like that is? What is Gorgeous doing to kind of help brands really push the message forward on producing great customer experience in this new age world where AI and technology are at the forefront?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, it's really likely because we're mainly focused on AI, making AI truly useful for e-commerce brands. Yeah. So we're not really trying to replace support teams. We're helping them. We're working together by being smarter, responding faster, and delivering experience that feel very personal.
Yeah, there's such a debate, and you're going to hear more about it as we look to some of these breakout sessions. But how do you find that balance, right, of kind of people and technology? And look, we've faced that before. But I think with this new AI stuff, we're facing it even more intensely, and finding that balance, I think, is ever important. You work with a lot of brands, you work with a lot of different companies. I'm just curious to kind of get your take as to how are you seeing, or how would you coach companies to kind of navigate this ever-changing environment? Where do you start? How do you get ahead? Any advice for these leaders who are trying to navigate these challenging times?
I know it can feel really daunting at times, for sure.
It does.
My advice would just be to start small, but start as soon as you possibly can, really. So just start looking at areas of your workflow where, AI can make maybe a small impact, a big impact, but, like things like handling repetitive questions or drafting responses. And I would also say, just to add to that, just be sure that you're keeping like that human touch and humanity in the loop as you kind of work through AI and implementing that into your workflows. And I'd say like the last thing is just, it's kind of an ever evolving cycle, right? Like make those improvements, make them continuous, constantly review and reiterate as time goes on.
I love it. I love it. Great piece of advice. So again, Alana, thanks so much for jumping on, and congratulations. I think, again, some of the things you guys are doing over there at Gorgeous are amazing. And also to Hark, CXAI, Codif, some of the technologies that were really recognized as we went to this group and kind of push them out. So again, thank you so much for joining, and thank you everybody who jumped out and got all the vote out. I mean, 10,000 votes. As we were thinking about this, we definitely did not think that ultimately we would have that many people kind of rally and try to recognize these people. So again, Alana, thank you, and we'll have some stuff coming your way. All right, well, that does wrap us. We do want to now move into the next portion of the event. Wanted to see if we could do some live versions of what's going on and bring in some of these experts, bring in our awards. But now we want to move into this on-demand concept. And we debated this. This is more of like a Netflix type concept. As we were kind of thinking through this, a lot of the feedback that we got was people don't always have time to take a week off and go to Shop Talk, go to these big events and be able to really immerse themselves. They might have 30 minutes at night. They might have this on the weekend or little bits and pieces of time. And so we wanted to find a structure and idea that fit into your environment, not ours, but yours. And so the next portion is meaty. We've basically broken it into 4 tracks, getting started with AI and CX, scaling AI, advanced AI, and then vision, leadership, and the future. Each of these tracks have about 5 to 15 people who have taken the time to give their thoughts and their opinions about that particular topic. We think there's some valuable information in there. These are on demand. So again, you don't have to watch them now. We wanted to make this at your leisure. Come back in an hour, come back tomorrow, whatever you'd like to do. But boy, are there some great sessions. They're fairly small in this, but I hope you've enjoyed this event. Again, this was meant to be more about you than it is us. We thought it'd be awesome to help us learn together as a AI and now CX community, trying to make how we kind of navigate through all the craziness going around. So again, thanks everybody for the time and hope you enjoy the next sessions. Oh, one more piece. If you haven't, you need to now refresh that session. Just refresh it and you'll go ahead and see the on-demand sessions pop. And if you'd like to see a little bit of AI, a lot of questions coming in through the panels. What does AI and CX actually look like? We did build a little bit of an agent so that you can experience AI and CX, how some brands are starting to do that. But again, make sure you go ahead and refresh that so that you can ultimately get into some of those on-demand sessions. I think with that, I'll leave it to you. Have a great day.